Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel, where I am massively sunburnt and wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Thursday sunny morning over here from Dubai yet again. Going to spend the rest of the day at the beach, but before that, we do have plenty of things to be discussing as far as the weekend setup goes. What do I mean by that? I mean the setup coming into the end of the week here. So in the next 48 hours between US Open today and tomorrow Friday, I do suspect that we are going to see an actual move outside of this range, and there is a pretty obvious setup going on right now. So I want to waste no time and get in the charts as fast as possible. I'll just briefly let you know on the main page here on the Crown Trading application, which you can find in the link in the description below. You will find all the information about the premium that I've been getting a lot of questions about in the left-hand panel over here. You can actually barely see it, but it's right there. Learn more. And what I'll also do is I'll make a more dedicated video on it once I'm back at my usual battle station. But for right now, that'll have to do, and hopefully answer some of the questions that I've been getting. So let's jump into it right now. And this is essentially the chart of the day for essentially the boo laws. So to put it bluntly, yes, I do think that Bitcoin is going higher. The question is, does Bitcoin come down somewhere into the 41,000 to 41,500-ish region first or not? We're going to come up with a validation and invalidation for that, obviously. But in this chart right here, a lot is actually said. So let me actually get naked on these charts first and go over what we are looking at. Let me bring up my indicators over here. And the big focus is on this, both the PMAR and Caretaker's MACD right here, of which both of these are 100% free. You just type them into the public library and they'll pop up. Credit to Caretaker for this, as always. He is the man. He is the absolute man. Anyways, what do we see on the 3-day chart specifically? We see three things in combination with each other, which does suggest higher price action probably over the next couple weeks here. What is the first thing? The MACD. We are getting a positive cross the upside for the first time, basically since the October run. But before that, we did see a similar posturing in this region, as far as the histogram goes, around the July bear trap, which was incredibly powerful. And you can see that that is also accompanied by a reclaim of the white 20 simple moving average on this chart as well, that being just the price chart right here. And then on top of that, if I bring in my drawing tools, I have marked off all of the green vertical bars that correlate to a region where the PMAR has regained the moving average on this one as well. By the way, because I know I'm going to get some questions about this as well, here on my settings for this, I am running a PMAR, not a PMARP in this case, 20 VWMA, 2000 look back, blah, 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 blah. That's all that really matters in this case. And also the Sigma MA will actually matter in this case as well, a 35 read in this case. So these signals together have actually produced some pretty nice moves in the past. Again, the most obvious one would be that last July bear trap that we saw in late July. It's very, very similar reads right here. Bitcoin reclaimed the the moving average on the PMR. We saw the MACD cross the upside in the exact same area. And then also we did see, that was it. MACD, 20 simple, and of course the PMAR. And then what I've also done is just marked off all of these areas where the PMAR has reclaimed that moving average on it throughout the last year or so now, going all the way back to December 2019 actually. And pretty much all of these has actually been pretty damn good moves to the upside. All of them except for one, which was actually that December 2019 one right here. Other than that, when we see this combination in alignment with each other, we do see, well, as you can see right here, some pretty nice upside moves over time. Now, this being a 3-day chart doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to play out like today, for example. Otherwise, we could use the old clickbait critical warning to the Bitcoin bearers. It's like to go alongside the other one. Sorry, that it was too fun to do the other day. Maybe I'll save it for like another special occasion. Although, maybe this one is it right here as well. But ultimately, again, as soon as Bitcoin kind of reclaims that 20 simple, I am looking for a shot towards the 55 in this case, which is around just above $47,000. So now let's go into what would actually validate this as a short-term setup with targets up, somewhere around $47,500, $48,000, which we can go into on this chart over here. There we go. And that would be this right here. Got a little bit of a Mark B ascending triangle. I saw him having that discussion in the Discord with Wally earlier. But ultimately, do we have a potential reaccumulation going on right here? Yeah, we did say yesterday that is kind of shaping up to be. This is not confirmed just yet. So talking about validation of this, which obviously is going to put the priority on this chart first with the longer term implications of this, and then this chart as kind of a more short-term validation chart, I would still be looking for either a 4-hour closure above $45,000 or an hourly closure above, I think it was like 45.1 or so, or 45.2, something like, yeah, 45.1 in this case would do it for me. Until then, it's a setup, but it is not necessarily confirmed, and there is still downside risk, obviously, as there always will be. But just as we saw in this chart over here, again, you know, if Bitcoin were to come down to about 41,500, that would be completely fine. So if we do go back into this chart once again, what would actually validate that move to the downside first before a try to the upside, which, by the way, this would have a natural implied target, seeing that it is a technical formation, into just below 47,000, or sorry, not below $47,000, but just below $48,000 in this case. Well, that would be with an hourly closure below the 42,500-ish region right here, or a 2-hour closure, whichever one you want to use. They're going to close at the same time anyways. Would be validating that move for myself. Again, targeting a region somewhere in this blue box territory right here, which is also in line with the hourly 200 simple, between about 41,200 and 41,500. Now, I want to show you something that does suggest that we see this move sooner rather than later if it's going to happen from this region, and it's over here on our stochastic momentum charts. Now, if we go over here into the daily, you will notice that the daily stochastic momentum is actually starting to curl down right now and will officially cross the downside for the first time basically since the mid-January run to the downside, with any sort of a closure today below 45,000 and change. So why is that significant? Well, as you'll notice, that is also confluent with the short-term time frame resolution point. So if Bitcoin does fail to close below there, above there today, that would be a pretty big warning signal suggesting that we probably do see the downside first. If Bitcoin especially closes like an hourly below that 42.5 pivot first, that would obviously, you know, very much confirm this as well. So that's kind of, you know, what's at stake in the next, I suppose, less than 24 hours. And actually, to be exact, it would be 17 hours, 60 minutes, and 50 seconds in this case. Other than that, all other lower term timeframes are a bit more corrective right here. As you can see, 4-hour stochastic momentum is actually headed down as long as Bitcoin's below 44,000 and about 100. Bitcoin's currently trading about $100 below that right now. So that is obviously a sneeze, but I'm not getting any obvious signal right here. We're just seeing a bit of a correction. So we hit extremes on volatility both here and here. This is an HVP, you know, very similar to a BBWP, although actually I don't have it on this. Let me go to this chart over here. We actually do have it because I want to see if this one is confluent with that. Yeah, very, very similar right here. Hit extremes and then another extreme read right here and then down. Now that we see it kind of come down, I want to see it come down a little bit further to be fair. So I don't think that this gets resolution like at this exact moment, for example, but anywhere below 20 percentile, you know, probably going to look at that as curtailed enough, contracted enough, and then we're probably looking for a resolution within the next 24 hours after that. But for right now, you know, momentum does remain to the downside, but this is a corrective signal within the context of a 4-hour uptrend. So that is, you know, to be expected. Also, we do see a 3-hour time frame doing what? Actually up right now, but this is looking weak to me. 43,780 or so is the magical number right there. Bi-hourly is showing what? Is showing down below 44,600. Okay, so still more corrective right here as well. And hourly is going to load. It's going to turn up above 44,300 or so. So basically that does say that, you know, unless we do see continuation probably within this next 24 hours hour segment, I'd say at latest by US Open tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that being Friday, that is, depending upon like kind of where you're watching from, but that's kind of where I'm looking for, you know, if the Bula is going to pick it up from this region. If that doesn't happen by then, probably going to test the downside first, somewhere around about 41,500, contingent upon that validation. And then our other medium-term timeframes are also, you know, a little bit more on the corrective side, with the 12-hour showing downside below 44.9. The buy daily is still up, so higher-term timeframe still good. And then, of course, we'll go over for the millionth and first time the 5-day signal right here, of which we got another iteration on this. I think it was yesterday actually, and we'll just go through this very, very briefly here. But basically, 5-day stochastic momentum will be remaining to the upside as long as Bitcoin's above 34,000 and change right there. And you actually notice that number's come down in the last couple closures, which is a good long-term sign. But a good long-term sign doesn't mean that, you know, short-term Bitcoin can't come down and, you know, test a little bit lower, to be fair. So with that in mind, why is this relevant? Why am I even talking about this? Well, there's only been a few times, 4 times to be exact, in Bitcoin history where we've actually seen this horizontal level on the 5-day stochastic momentum levels hit. Elsa, could you please answer the door? Housekeeping's coming right now, so have to wait for that, I suppose. But this has only happened 4 of the times in Bitcoin's history, as you can see. 3 of the 4 times have actually been macro cycle lows. Anyways, as we do see the first time in Bitcoin's history, going all the way back to the genesis in 2011, we do see that this was a macro cycle low right here. Again, took some time for Bitcoin to really get going and did retest the lows after that. In fact, all of these have that in common. They do retest around the lows. So, take that in mind. Bitcoin can very easily do something like that. So I don't want to present the case that it's just like all, rainbows and fucking pixie dust and, I don't know, unicorn assholes. I don't know what else is good in the hood, from exactly this point onwards, but it is a good historical signal for what it's worth. The next iteration that we have was over in January 2015. Again, macro cycle low, retested 8 months later, and then upwards and onwards through there. But, it did retest exactly to it, but that was the low. And then, of course, the most recent one, December 2018 right here. Again, takes about 3-4 months to get going. It does retest it kind of about 2 months later almost right here in January. And then a little bit actually in March of 2020 as well, which was like a year and a half later or so. Is that right? Yeah, about a year and a half later. So do keep that in mind. And then, of course, there was one iteration where it was actually a bull trap. Now, this bull trap, admittedly, was a pretty nice move to the upside, something like this, 70% move plus. So that's obviously a wick basis. On a closing basis, I think it was like 20% or so, somewhere around there. And for reference right now, and I'm not saying that this would necessarily be the same move anyways, it very unlikely wouldn't, just because, Bitcoin is a higher market cap now, so you wouldn't really expect the same sort of severity of moves. But for reference, 70% move puts Bitcoin in like the mid $50,000 territory. A 20% closing basis move puts Bitcoin pretty much where we're at right now. So, that could be very relevant actually. So again, this is why validations on shorter term timeframes are actually quite pertinent for a day like today. Especially, I know it's a very unsexy analysis. We can do like a clickbait bullshit title for this one if you so desire, but at the end of the day, that's what trading is, man. That's what trading is, and I don't really want to misrepresent what I actually do because, well, it's like, I think until like a lot of people actually get into the game of trading, they realistically, what is trading? It's a game of just statistics and probabilities, and so that's really all that it is. Unfortunately, I know that a lot of people think that it's just like you can always be right every single time. No, it's always coming about a setup, the statistics behind it, which is why we kind of back test some of these indicators that we show on stream here if they are relevant to you, and then move on with our lives. And it either works out or it doesn't, but over time should work out in your favor, assuming that you do have a good setup. That's what it's all about. Anyways, we are 12 minutes into this video. Is there anything else that I want to get onto right now? Maybe one last quick thing that we can end on. Actually, let me just bring this over here and let's go back to this chart perhaps. I just want to bring up this chart yet again. I do want to highlight a bit of caution in the basically that 47.5 to let's call it $48,000 to $50,000 region. This $48,000 to $50,000 region right here. Why is that? Why am I highlighting that region for the long term? Not necessarily going to be relevant today, but long term. Well, one, we do have the 200 simple kind of crawling around that region that would be around the implied target for the lower end of that targeted region as well. As you can see right there, but longer term, the reason why I'm highlighting this one is because this would be the 618 Fibonacci retracement around this region. So I do like to be aware of that region, especially on a macro setup like this, because that is a very, very common place for a bigger pullback. Something like this is what I'd be looking for. Not necessarily that move after that, but Bitcoin gets something like this, whether it pushes on through where we're at right now or comes down to 41 or 41.5 first. That's kind of irrelevant to me, to be quite honest with you. Ultimately, move into this region right here, contingent upon the closure above $45,000. This is where I really be looking for the greater pullback. And then the question is, what does Bitcoin do after it tests around $40,000? Because that's kind of my line in the sand. As long as Bitcoin's above $40,000 on a daily closing basis, I'm generally looking for Bitcoin to trade sideways and up, probably around those regions in the next month and a half or so. But after it does something like this, what happens after that move? Does it pop back up and take out the $50,000 area to the upside? If it does, great. We're going to have targets into the deep 50s, maybe even low 60s, and probably going to be macro bullish. If Bitcoin doesn't do that and instead does something like this, where it bounces initially and then puts in a lower high, perhaps at that 0.5 where we're at right now, would even be a head and shoulders right there as well, and then specifically comes down below that $40,000 region, very, very bearish long term, very likely targeted, move back down into the long-term macro weekly area, which is about $29.5 to $31,000. So, lots at stake right there. But for right now, I think the most obvious play is obviously actually just right here, quite simply. Above 45, good. Below 42.5, I wouldn't say bad, but just, further corrections down below $40,000. That's where the bulls probably start to sweat quite a fair bit and do a little bit of puking. But for right now, I didn't even talk about the underlying market dynamics, but global open interest is still below the critical areas that I look for in order to, really look for some major downside. I don't think that we have the rocket fuel just yet. Another billion or billion and a half on it. And then, would be a little more concerned, especially if Bitcoin, puts in a lower high somewhere, on your higher term time frames. On top of that, we do see that funding rates are starting to edge their way into positive territory. On the hourly data feed right here, you will notice that it's actually still slightly negative, and the fear and greed index is now officially in the neutral zone, which we spent about almost 3 months in the very fearful zone, similar to what we saw on the summer lows as well. And then if we could just quickly go into this chart over here, because I do think that this one is rather interesting. That would be the NUPL. We do see that NUPL did come off the lows. We've made lower lows than what we saw over the summer, so we do have a bit of a divergence there between price action and the NUPL. A little bit more on the bullish side, I guess, as well, and the SOPAR as well, which did hit an extreme on the bear trap that we called last week. So we typically look at extreme reads on major pivots in the market, both the upside and the downside, actually. So I thought that was rather pertinent. Anyways, those things would be a little more on the Bula-ish side. But for right now, just a lot more easy to kind of be playing the range resolution right here. So there's the critical winning to Bulas and Beras, and can we just be Trader Oz? Anyways, with that said, I want to wish you well yet again. Take care and see you hopefully soon.